Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you guys for being here today. We are joined by SAS's Nicholas Robert, and he will be speaking to you all about building an AI assistant with SAS Intelligent Decisioning and Azure's OpenAI. And if we have any time at the end, we'll open it up for Q&A if there's any questions.
All right. Thanks for being here. Do you hear me? Okay, cool. I just got attacked by a Periebola, so I got plenty of blood everywhere, so don't be scary. So I'm going to jump into the presentation. I will give credit to Bogdan, my colleague, who has built that. I'm just a substitute here, but I will try to do my best to illustrate how we can use a SAS decision into an AI assistant, right? So first, before I'm showing you a couple of things, what do we want to achieve here? So we want to provide a way for maybe customer, maybe prospects, or maybe internal employees like credit officers of a way using an assistant to be able to communicate or discuss or talk with a SAS decision. So a real-time trusted decision. And we'll see during this demonstration and this illustration, so the final product, so what it will look like, and also we'll show the building blocks of that entire cycle. All right? So I want some people to be able to talk to an assistant and be able in the back end to call a decision that will give me back some results. So let's go ahead. So I will explain all the details later, but here I am in Azure OpenAI. Oh, I'm not, actually. Maybe I need to do an escape. Yes. So I'm in OpenAI, so I'm in the assistant playground, so I will show you how we can, first the final product. So I have an assistant set up, and I will try to see what I can do, right? So the first thing I will ask him is, what can you do? So the assistant will try to get some conversation with me, and it will try to explain me what it can do. So it can calculate your risk rating. And for this, it will be able to need some, it will have to need some inputs, right? So, and then it can also explain other things. So if it's not related to risk rating, you will have to contact your credit officer and things like that, right? Okay. So I will get started. So let's get started. And the first question is asking me is my age. So let's pretend I'm 38. And then the next thing that it will ask me is that, oh, my employment status. So what am I? I'm full-time employee. So let's do this. And then my yearly income, let's say I'm earning 80,000. Then he's asking me about my credit score. So I have this credit score 750. And then the last thing that he wants my debt to income ratio. So how many percent I'm having to pay my rent or my utilities. So let's say 30%. So I guess he has all the information, and of course it doesn't work. So what I'm gonna do is go into the plan B. I'm sorry for that. Where I was supposed to do the same thing. So I'm not going to, I will move along in the video, but so this will perform like this. So once it collected all the information, then it will be able to gather the information, collect the information, and then behind the scenes call a service that will give the answer, right? So here, for the parameter that I've done, I was at low risk, and then we can ask the assistant to explain the decision, why was at low risk, what are the criteria that are counting the most, and things like that. So you can really interact with it, and it will explain, and we can also do it for my son, for example. And then I don't remember what I was doing in this video, but yeah, it was 13, okay. So that was just for the sake of this demo. He's of course unemployed. And then the next question was his yearly income. I guess that he is not earning any money as of now. And then his credit score, he doesn't have a credit score, so let's do 650. And his debt to income, he has no debt, right? So 0. So again, the assistant has collected all the information. It will request a service based on all the information. The service will give an answer about the risk, and then we'll get a high risk here in that case, and we can ask him to explain. So I'm sorry I didn't get to make it work here. Maybe we'll come back later. Let's jump into the next slide. So that was the final product. Now, how did we build that? How did we achieve that? So, of course, in the far back end, there was a SAS decision. So we created a SAS decision in SAS Intelligent Decisioning, and the decision was about collecting a few parameters like the age, the credit score, and things like that, and based on that decision, assigning some points, and based on that points, assigning a type of risk. Is it low risk, medium risk, or high risk? On the other end, we were using Azure OpenAI, so it's not a SaaS product, it's in a pure Azure cloud environment. We are using OpenAI, and in OpenAI you can build chatbots and you can build AI assistants, right? And in AI Assistant, you can rely on an LLM model. You can customize it so that it can, so that you can interact with this or impact his behavior. You can tell him what to do, what not to do, and you can also specify a function that you want to call the SAS decision. But of course, it's not a direct communication between the two. We have some bricks in the middle. The first thing that we wanted to do is to export the decision into a container so that we can be more flexible, so that we can have a runtime that is more lightweight, so that we can run a decision just as a container, not outside of SAS Viya. The other thing that we have to do is that OpenAI can call some functions, Azure functions. And the Azure function that it can call is called the Azure Logic Apps. So we had to build the Azure Logic Apps to mix the two, to merge the service that we have on SAS container and then the Logic app. So when we have all of that connected together, we can achieve what I showed in the video. So we can interact with an assistant. The assistant will call an Azure Logic app. The Azure Logic app will call a web service or REST service, which is the decision that is available as a container. And this decision available as a container comes from a decision built in SAS Viya. So you can think about it as using SAS Intelligent Decisioning as the development of the decision, and then you can publish those decisions into production in containers. So let's discuss about, introduce briefly the main components, and then we'll try to take a look at the blocks in the Azure portal. So SAS Intelligent Decisioning, that's the solution to automate manage and deploy real-time business rules. There has been a lot of presentation about decisioning around, so if you are interested, there might be some materials. So in SaaS Decision, you will be able to create decisions which are a combination of rules that you can set up, a combination of conditional logic. And here in this decision, it's a very simple decision. It's just give me your age, and from your age, I will attribute some points, right? If you are young, maybe you will get less points than if you are in the 30s. If you are in the 60s, maybe you will have less points than if you are in the 30s. So things like that. Very simple rules in that case. And we'll do the exact same with the credit score, with the debt to income ratio, with what was the income that you earn every year. So at the end of this decision, when you collect all these parameters, you will just give an answer which is low risk, medium risk, high risk, and things like that. Once you have built that decision, you can export it into an Azure Container Registry, which is the requirement to be able to use SaaS Container Runtime. So you export the decision as a container image, and then you can run this container image separately from SaaS Viya. So it's lightweight, it's easy to administer, it's easy to set up, and it's easy to interact with. So those two first were SaaS products, and of course we are moving to the Azure side. Azure Logic Apps are a useful tool to automate workflows and integrate applications, data, and services across cloud and on-premises environments. It's a really powerful tool to integrate multiple services from multiple providers. So the Azure Logic app will be called by the assistant, and the Azure Logic app will call the SaaS decision. So it's the middleware between my assistant and SaaS. And then you have the Azure OpenAI Assistant, which you can define using an LLM model for the conversational aspect, and also you can customize it to really focus on what you need to do, right? You will tell him exactly what you need to do. All right, so let's move to the component demonstration. So for the decision, I also have a video, so I will just run this, if that works. All right, so here I am in SaaS Viya, and I will open the SaaS Intelligent Decisioning, which is the build decision application. I'm just showing what my decision looks like. So it's risk rating, and as you can see, it's a very simple decision that will analyze the different parameters coming in. So the age, the employment status, the income level ratio, the debt to income ratio, and things like that. And as you can see, for each rule, it's a very basic. Give me the age, and I will assign some points to the age. And then at the end, we'll have, so that's the same for the credit score. Depending on the value of the credit score, I will attribute some points. And of course, at the end, I will compute the total risk. Does it do that? Okay. So the final step of the decision is to compute the total number of points, so that will give me if it's a high risk, medium risk, or low risk. Before I move forward, I will test my decision in SaaS Intelligent Decisioning. So here I am just running this decision against a couple of observations. And once it's done, I can just take a look at the results. And for the different values that I have, the age, I will see the points attributed, and I will see the risk level. Once you are fine with your decision, you will have to publish it, because if you want to use the SaaS Container Runtime. So here I will publish it to Azure. I have a publishing destination define in my environment, and I can export this decision as a container image. And then I will move to hopefully live demo. So let me stop that. So I will go into, yeah, we can see it. My resource group. I can show you, so this is the output. So I'm in the Azure portal, so that's not SaaS. I can see that in my container registry, when I publish export decision, I will see the result, which is a repository that has the same name as my decision. And I can see that the publishing of my decision was just a container, and it was the 28th of March, right? So again, that's fine. I have my container registry, I have my decision available. Let's try to see how it works. So here you have your container ready, now you have to run it. And to run it, you will run a container instance. So this is my container instance running my decision. I can see it, it started, so let's try to use it. So in order to test it, I will just open this, a Cloud Shell, which will allow me to test this decision. And for testing, let me grab curl command to just test my decision, just to check that if it is working well. So I will paste that. So my decision is running as a container and as a REST API. So I can interact with it with curl, basically. But then, of course, once I've validated this, I will be able to use that REST API from an Azure Logic app. So let's see if that works. I'm sending this. I'm sending a couple of parameters. So age 30, credit score 850, and so on. And if you look at the result, you can see that I got some points for every parameters, and the final risk rating, so the final output of my decision is here. So it's a low risk. So let me try to just use that again with different parameters. Let's say now I am part-time, and then my credit score is now 650. Let's run this. And you can see that based on those new parameters, now I am a medium risk. Okay, so I have validated that my decision is running as a container and that I can work with it. So there was the decision in intelligent decisioning. Then we tested the decision as a container image. Now let's see how we can use that in an Azure Logic app. So I'll go home. I'm closing this. And then still in my Super Demo 2025, I will open this SaaS Decision LA, so SaaS Decision Logic app. And what I will do is I will open this. So this Logic app is, it's a service, it's a function that will allow you to mix different processing, right? And mix different services. So the first thing I will do is, when you start to create a Logic app, is to manage the trigger, right? So the trigger is simple. That will be a calling application, in my case, the OpenAI assistant that will trigger this Logic app, and then you have to define what you will receive here. So I will receive an employment status. So you define what are the main parameters that you will have, right? So I will receive the age, I will receive the employment status, I will receive what I want to define in my OpenAI assistant. So I'm receiving this information from the calling application, and then here I will call my SaaS decision. So you can see, you can add a service, HTTP service in your Logic app, and you can say, okay, I will call my SaaS decision, I will send all the parameters I get, so I will send an age, I will send the credit score, and you can see that from the color coding that these values, age, credit score, employment status, comes from the trigger here. So that will be information that the calling application will send to my Logic app. So we know that when we call the container, we will get a JSON response with the risk. So we need to parse the JSON output. So you can do that using a parse JSON node in the Logic app. So it's used to just extract the information and reassemble the information, which I will do here. I'm not going into too much details. Those are pretty standard nodes that I was using. The one that is interesting is the create CSV table. I'm receiving JSON from SaaS, but if I want to, the best format to inject to an LLM, to an assistant, CSV is much better for that because it will be able to understand the information faster than if it was a JSON file. So CSV is a good way to exchange with an AI assistant. So I'm creating a CSV table and then I'm sending back the response to the calling application. I can try this, so I can run with a payload, and again, I will grab some information from here just to test my Logic app. Is my Logic app working? I will figure it out. So let's go into the body, put that, and then run. As a result, so it seems to work. As a result, I get this CSV format, okay? So I got my points, I got my risk and things like that. So it seems to work well. So now let's go back to, and what I will do is that I will try to make it work. So I will quit Chrome, start again, and then go into the portal. And then the final component that we want to see is the assistant, sorry. So I'm going to open the SaaS decision, OpenAI assistant. I'm going to open the application that I was trying earlier. And I will show you what my assistant looked like. So when you build an assistant in the OpenAI, you will just give a name and you will use what they call a deployment, which is basically an LLM. It's all for managing the conversation between you and the assistant, or no, between the assistant and the back end. But so that's a generic LLM model, but here the most interesting thing is how you can control the assistant. So you are giving some instruction in the assistant to control its behavior, to control its personality. And here I'm telling him what he has to do, what he can do, what he cannot do, right? So I'm telling him, you are an AI assistant, you can do it with hi, I can calculate your risk rating, you will need some inputs for the calculation, you can ask some questions. So you are defining how he will behave, right? And you will collect information. So you will collect the credit score, you will collect the income ratio, and you will use a function, which is the Logic app function that we will define later. And you explain it, what it will receive. You will receive a risk, you will receive a CSV file, you have to parse it, you have to understand it, and make an answer to the UI. And you can customize it. If the question is about the weather, just say sunny in Orlando. If the question is not related to risk calculation, just say contact your credit officer. So that's what is important. And also the other thing that is important is, of course, you have to link it with the Azure Logic app that you have defined. So let's look at that, you click on Manage, and by default, you will see all the Logic apps that are available. And there is my decision here, my Logic app. I will save it. And we will try again if that is working. So let's cross fingers and say, what can you do? All right, it can calculate my risk rating. Let's get started. I'm 45 now. I'm unemployed. Zero. I have this 650 credit score, and my debt to ratio is 100. Okay, and that fails. I'm sorry, but the point here was he has collected all the information. He should have been able to call the Azure Logic app and then call the decision that is available as a container and then giving me back the answer about what I was doing here. So that concludes my super demo. I'm sorry for the technical issues. I have all the materials available as videos if you want to, but I can provide that. And if you have any question, I will be happy to answer them. Not yet, but I can take your name and send them to you. Yeah, I will note your name. Sorry?
There's part of it where you asked it to explain.
Yeah.
Was that part of that thing that you just showed us, or was there another script?
It was part of the instruction that I give, but also it's part of. So the model was able to see what kind of information he was exchanging. So he was able to give some explanation about that. So he's able to alone try to discover what kind of information drive the decision. So it's a mix of the information I gave and the information it can exchange with the Azure Logic app. I will just take a picture. I don't know how to.
Take a picture.
Yeah. And I will send that to you.
All right. And I went to another class of yours too. I forget which one.
I have a similar case. If you can send me, especially those videos. And I have a question about like, what is the easiest way how to set up this environment? Let's imagine that you are the company, you have or the small bank or something like that. What is the typical approach like? Okay, I need to set up an environment in Azure. I need to have some access to the ID. I would like to, maybe test, set up, and maybe use it for creating different
Prototype? No.
yeah, some kind of
Yeah.
kind of
So
I know it is completely
No.
in Azure
Oh, it is completely. It is completely available in Azure, and it's
including the ID.
everything I show is you can do that now, right? So intelligent decision exists, obviously. SaaS container runtime exists. You can export decision as containers, and then Azure Logic App and OpenAI are just tools coming from Azure, so they are also available. So, and you can build a prototype like this quite easily because I was able to build it.
Clear about what is the pre-requirements, how to get, this functionality, how to purchase, for example, this ID, if it is directly contracting with a SaaS or it is like
So
the Asian market, and I don't know to buy, for a certain period of the time.
Yeah. So intelligent decision is available, and you can contract. So that's a SaaS 2 product. Okay, so it's with SaaS. SaaS container runtime 2. I don't know if it's under license or not. Maybe it's just, I need to check that. And Azure Logic App and Azure OpenAI are just service on the marketplace that you can run. So if you have a Azure subscription, you can already play with that. Yeah, it's already available.
Including ID, or you are not sure?
No, ID. So, intelligent decisioning, you will have to publish to Azure. So, yeah, this is already possible, but it's not out of the box in Azure.
No, this is my question. This is my question.
Yeah. So it's
It
not.
is or it is not. Because we have the customer, for example, now we have the customer. I'm the partner.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
but I'm curious, how to make it maybe more simple for different customers. Because now we have customer, and we are going to set up an environment with a SaaS HMS.